Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's time to have some fun today. This is my first iteration of the 2024 NFL mock draft, but we're doing it a little differently today. I figured instead of me making these picks, I want to do a little more research. I want to get a little more analysis out there, looking at some of those team fits, some of those player strengths and weaknesses. But today I thought that we could spice it up by having a computer make these picks. It's a little too early to talk about my week 13 previews. It's a little too late to talk about my week 12 reviews. So what we're going to do is talk about this NFL draft. We're going to think about what the team should do. We're going to watch the computer make the pick. Then we're going to analyze the pick afterwards, give a little 10-second grace period, get into the next team's pick. We have the Chicago Bears on the board, and I want to give a disclaimer. There's no trades in this iteration of the mock draft, so we're going to see these teams sticking and picking, going back to our channel last year. But the Chicago Bears, if they don't trade this pick, I think we all know where they're going. They're not going Marvin Harrison Jr. number one overall. I think I see them going quarterback, and who will that quarterback be? Is it Caleb Williams or is it Drake May? Let's find out. So they take Caleb Williams with the first pick, and I think that this is what we've been talking about a lot this week, seeing really the iteration of should the Chicago Bears go in the direction where they just blow this thing up? They bring in a new regime. Talking about Ryan Poles, is he out of the door? Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, looking at all of the guys within that organization. And I think for me personally, I say you use this pick. If it were up to me, I trade back. I get another first. I get some future first if I can. I get a second and third rounder. I build this team with Justin Fields still at the quarterback position. If I keep Matt Eberflus, I keep him. One thing I will not do, Luke Getsy is my offensive coordinator. I'm looking at some of those offensive minds in the game of football, and I think I go there, get a plethora of talent, get a Marvin Harrison Jr. along with the DJ Moore. Now you're starting to build this thing from the ground up. The defense has been playing better. Get some offensive linemen. You have offensive linemen, but I still think you can improve in that area. So that's something I would do. Now, number two overall, I think that this is a team that has a number of holes. I truly don't know where they're going to go with this pick. Is it quarterback? Is it receiver? Is it offensive or defensive line? Is it one of those? It's a lot of different things they could do, and that's what you're seeing what I'm saying right here. So we're going to look at this team's pick and see what they actually do. So they take a Marvin Harrison Jr. Interesting pick. I think right here, you probably take the best talent on the board. Are the Arizona Cardinals in a situation where they can afford to pass up on a guy like Drake May? Are they going to go with Kyler Murray? Those are questions we have to have, bringing in a Jonathan Gannon, looking at the offensive coordinator. I think right now, what I've seen thus far, they feel like that's their guy. I still think Kyler Murray has elite football left in him at the NFL level. So this will be an interesting one for me, pairing this along with the Marquise Brown, looking at a James Conner in the backfield, some of those different guys. If you put in a Marvin Harrison Jr., that does boost the offense, and I think you still have additional picks where you can go get the defense better. Now, this number 3 overall pick, I think it has to be Drake May. From what I've been looking at, you're benching Mac Jones, you're bringing in Bailey Zappi, you're doing this, you're doing that, all these different things. Really, with Bill O'Brien, the offense hasn't been humming like we thought we would see. Bringing in a true offensive coordinator, you get out of the Matt Patricia, the Joe Judges of the world. Now with Mac Jones, supposed to take that leap in his third year, we just haven't seen it. I think this is Drake May, but I want to see what the computer does. So they take Drake May. Okay. It makes a lot of sense. I think for me, this is probably one of the easier picks. We see some tackles that we're going to see very early. That's a Joe Alt. That's a Olu Fashanu. But I think when you make a decision like this, you have to feel very good about it, though. Chicago Bears up again. Now, I talked about those tackles. Do they feel confident with a Darnell Wright, with a Braxton Jones at those tackle positions? I think that right here, you're looking at possibly a Kool-Aid McKinstry. We're looking at some of those defensive linemen. I want to see what they do right here, though. I think that you get the best player on the board in a position like this right here for Chicago. So so they take Olu Fashanu. So this is telling me we plug and play him at that left tackle position. Do we keep Darnell Wright as our starting right tackle? Do we develop him a bit more? Do we kick Braxton Jones over to the right tackle? A lot of different things, but I think this is one of the most talented players coming out of this draft. So I do like that pick for Chicago. They're loading up, like I said right now. Now, with Washington, I think we could see one of those edges, possibly a corner right here, or maybe even Brock Bowers. Do you get Sam Howell, that security blanket with the Eric Bieniemy if he stays on the coaching staff? Now you have something to work with. You have a true core quarterback, security blanket, having running backs. Now we're going to bring in some more running backs. Still got a McLaurin on the outside. Still got a De'Ami Brown, a Jahan Dotson. I want to see what they do right here. So they take Joe Alt. And the reason I'm not really saying anything about this pick, Sam Howell is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Leading the league in passing yards is cute. We all love it. But when you have a guy like Joe Alt, that's one of those franchise tackles if it translates to the NFL out of Notre Dame. We think of some great linemen coming out of Notre Dame. I can name them. I can name a lot. But I think this is a great pick. I think it's a safe pick. I would have liked Brock Bowers right here. Would have liked particularly an edge player when you trade a Montez Sweat and a Chase Young, but I think you can do that down the line. Now, the New York Giants, one of those teams where I say we get the best player available. I'm looking at their needs right now. I think the best two tackles are off the board. I think with really you look at receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. is off the board. I'm thinking about Keon Coleman. I think about a lot of guys right here in this position, but I want to see what they do. We look at offensive line, defense. Is it a defensive lineman? Is that what they take right here? And they okay. An interesting note about Latu. I just saw that he opted into the Senior Bowl, so we're gonna get a lot of analysis about this guy coming out of the draft process. I think he's one of those top tier edge players, having the athleticism, having the size, the length. So this is a pretty interesting pick, and to see how Kayvon Thibodeau, to see how he's been coming on thus far in the season, I think that I do like the move for New York. A very talented player, adding something on the edge. You can also say, do they trade up in a position like this? Is Daniel Jones the guy for next year? Marvin Harrison Jr., do they try to get one of those players, one of those blue chip guys? Now, I'm not saying Latu isn't a blue chip guy, but I'm thinking about their needs and seeing what they are offensively right now. I think with Bobby Okereke, with some of the guys on the defense, Deontay Banks, even though they haven't been winning, I'm seeing some things along the defensive side of the ball that have made me feel better as the season has progressed. Offensively, I think you have a lot of needs, but right here they load up on defense. Now, the Tampa Bay Bucks, another interesting one. I think this is Brock Bowers. I'm going to just say it. I see the fit. I see the potential in it. I feel like this is Brock Bowers, if not one of those quarterbacks, because a Penix Jr. can get moved up the board. We're thinking about a JJ McCarthy. We're looking at some of these guys. Is Bo Nix going to get into the first round? A lot of questions right here, but I want to see what they do. So they take Brock Bowers. Like I said, I don't think this takes too much analysis. I think it is a perfect fit, especially looking at what those guys like to do. You bring in a tight end, a guy who can block, a guy who can play in line. You can split him outside. Just an all-around versatile tight end. One of those franchise type players. We talk about 10 plus years. That's what you get with Brock Bowers. Nothing wrong with the pick. Now, the New York Jets, I think this is another interesting one. Right here, you got some questions coming up because we think about all of that depth they have along the edge on the defensive line, guys coming up for free agency. And do you go defensive line here? I think that you drafted Will McDonald last year. He hasn't been a key cog in the rotation like we've seen thus far. I think you look at some of the other guys, maybe a Bryce Huff, maybe a Jermaine Johnson, and he's going to be a first-round pick. I think he has all of the talent in the world. So not really feeling defensive line right here. Like I said, my top two tackle prospects are off the board. They could potentially go tackle here. Maybe one of the other guys reaching up a bit. This is potentially a spot where you trade back in real time. Receiver. Let's just see what they do right here. So they go Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, the second receiver off the board. I want to know what you guys think about that. I think there's some very, very talented receivers coming out of this draft. So I don't know. Again, we got the Los Angeles Chargers, another very talented team. I think they have a lot of talent, but they haven't been able to put it together. When you're looking at it, Mike Williams is going to be healthy. Do you retain him? Keenan Allen, another guy getting a bit older, but still producing at a number one rate. You're looking at Gerald Everett at the tight end position. Austin Eckler. Do you move away from him and draft another back? This is way too early. You're not drafting a running back number 9 overall. I think my best tight end is off the board. Maybe this is defense. Because I think they have a lot of weapons. They have to get some things going. Justin Herbert has had, for the most part, I think he statistically put up a great season. When you look at some of the clutch time games when they're down by one score, winning those tight ball games, that's something they have to work on. And can the defensive side of the ball help it? I bank on defense right here. So they take Jared Verse, a guy I've been talking about a lot throughout the draft process. Probably it's close. I think that when I go back and watch the film, I'll have a clear-cut number one, but I look at Verse, I look at Dallas Turner, and of course I'm looking at Latu out of UCLA. These are some very interesting edge prospects, and you add a guy like this, Khalil Mack's getting older. Joey Bosa, he's injured right now. So I think when you add that into the rotation, that's going to help the secondary. That's going to help Asante Samuel Jr. That's going to help a Kenneth Murray at the middle linebacker position, a Derwin James. I like the pick. For the Tennessee Titans, I'm looking at it. You got Traylon Burks. You got Chig at the tight end position. Derrick Henry, do you move? Is this finally the offseason they move off of him? Could it be quarterback? I mean, they have Will Levis right now. They still have Malik Willis, but I think Levis is the guy confidently right now. We still got to see some more out of Will Levis, but I think just what he's had to work with thus far, being thrusted into that position, because originally he was the third string guy. Malik Willis came in there, didn't play particularly well. Then you kicked in on Will Levis. He looks solid. So I think you still ride with him going into next season, adding more talent around him. Are they a receiver hungry team? That's a question I have right here. It's on their team needs on the board. Defensive back, we still got Kool-Aid McKinstry. There's some other talented corners in this draft as well. But let's see what they do. Okay. So they get an interior versatile defensive lineman. This is one of the better ones coming out of draft out of Illinois. I think that with what they've really done thus far, with some of those guys on the defensive line, you're really getting anchored by Jeffrey Simmons. And of course, if you like the talent, you take the talent. But I think that at some of those richer positions, some of those positions where we say, okay, these are the guys who get paid the high dollars. Interesting pick. Titans fans, I want to know what you think down below in the comments about that pick. Getting a versatile interior defensive lineman, I want to know what you think. But right here, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. I think for the Raiders, defensively, I think they've been playing pretty good. You still got Tyree Wilson, who has to get healthy, but he was a top 10 pick on the edge. I think that when you have Tyree Wilson, you have Max Crosby, a top 5 edge rusher in all of football. Could it be secondary? Do you keep Josh Jacobs? These are the type of questions where I have to ask. Do you take a quarterback? Aiden O'Connell is playing pretty solid right now, but do you want to go into next season with that? Who's the head coach going to be? A lot of different questions. This might be a quarterback position. See what they do. So they take Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Like I aforementioned, I think that you have a Tyree Wilson, some of the other guys, you have a Max Crosby playing at such a high level. I'm never against adding edge rushers because they're so impactful. They're so important to the game of football. They help you win football games. But I just think there's a lot of different things you could do right here. And it's really, you're going into the next season. Do you want to ride with Aiden O'Connell for another season? Type of questions that I have. Now, for the Saints, I think a pretty interesting team. Right now, I think their offensive line is beat up. They have Derek Carr. I think they're locked in with Derek Carr. Regardless of how good or bad you think Derek Carr is, I think he's their quarterback for the foreseeable future at least. I think this has to be offensive line. But of course, like I said, those tackle prospects are going to go quick. So they take Dallas Turner. What Saints fans, what do we think about this? Is this really setting us up? Is he going to be is Cam Jordan going to serve as a mentor, or does Cam Jordan really transition into his next phase of life, getting out of football, and then you have Dallas Turner coming on to be a prominent edge rusher? I think it's a couple of things you can juggle with. I mean, you still drafted Miles Murphy. That's a developmental prospect. No, actually, you drafted Brian Brzee. So they have Brian Brzee on the interior. You still got Dallas Turner. Okay, so I think you have some things working when you talk about that with the defensive line. Pretty interesting pick. I do like Dallas Turner as a player. I do want to say that. He can add to put some weight on, though. So we're looking at the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about this for a little bit. I think that, coming off the Detroit Lions game, seeing the way Christian Watson has played, he played like a one in that game, attacking the football, getting down the football field, being kind of that security blanket on the perimeter. You have Romeo Dobbs. You got Heath stepping up, another guy. I think when you look at that, a Dontavian Wicks playing the way he's playing, it's interesting. Do you want to go offensive line here? You've been really battling injuries across the offensive line. I think when you look at the defense, you look at some of those guys. Now, they traded away Rasul Douglas, and they had no Jair Alexander, still put up a good performance against Detroit in the last game. I think safety is potentially somewhere you could look if you're talking about Green Bay, but not this high, of course. I like Quay Walker on the football field, not with his antics, of course. But I think some of the things we look at, it's an interesting one. I want to see what they do right here. Not really sure about this one. So they draft Kool-Aid McKinstry. Like I say, you traded Rasul Douglas. I think with the talent, just as good as Kool-Aid is as a player, and it's not really, you have other needs on the team. I think we could all say that. But when you have a player that's that talented, and it's not like you're secure at the cornerback position when you trade a Rasul Douglas, you have a Jair Alexander, yes, but you get those two bookends. Is Joe Barry still going to be the defensive coordinator? I think they're playing a little better right now. We're seeing Rashawn Gary come on. We're seeing a Devontae Wyatt, a Kenny Clark. So you add those guys in the secondary. Now we're talking about scary hours. And if they do some things in the free agency, shoring up the offense a little bit with Matt LaFleur, who knows what the sky is for a Jordan Love led team. Now the LA Rams, I think the offensive line. I mean, you draft Steve Avila. I really, really like him on the interior. But I think when we're looking outside of that, we could use to add some guys. I mean, defensively, they're just really young at a lot of positions. I mean, Ernest Jones, I like him at the linebacker position, like Jacoby Durant, some of the other guys in the secondary. Aaron Donald's still there, of course. But I think this is a pick where you try to go talent, if not offensive line. So this might be the first shock of the. This might this might be the first shock of the video. Not to me, it's the first shock of the video. Drafting Bo Nix when you got Matthew Stafford. Is this a team that's going to get off of Matthew Stafford? Does Sean McVay feel like? Does he feel like he needs a new innovative quarterback? I'm thinking about Bo Nix, what he does at Oregon. Now, there's still a lot left on the table for Bo Nix. I think there's some criticism of him right now, pushing the football down the football field, not talking about arm strength, but really within his decision making. We've seen Bo Nix against some of the better competition get a little interception hungry. So, not knocking the player, but the team in a position, this is interesting. I think that Matthew Stafford is a really good quarterback. He's been good when they've had him in there. He missed a couple games. Carson Wentz has been in a little bit. He came in the last game at garbage time. I think you draft a Stetson Bennett, but he's not going to be a franchise guy. Interesting. Rams fans, I want to know what you think about this one. Now, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm gonna just go out and say it. Me personally, I see the needs. They're talking about tight end. They're talking about tackle, defensive line. I think personally, I like Keon Coleman right here. Think about it. T. Higgins. Now they've said they want to keep T. Higgins, they want to keep Jamar Chase, and I'm all for it. T. Higgins is a number one on any other team. I think I could confidently say that Jamar Chase, he is what he is. Joe Burrow just got paid. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, if we want to have that big body threat that can also get down the football field, that can catch the football, that has a catch radius out of this world, if we want to replicate that in what we see in T. Higgins, Kevin Coleman's right on the table. Another receiver coming out of the ACC, Florida State guy, pair him with Jamar Chase. I think this is a very good opportunity to let T. Higgins walk, put some of that money elsewhere, still get a very good receiver. But I'm going to see what they do, though. Okay, so they go tackle. Okay. I like it. I think when you just now this is interesting because they put so much money into the offensive line. Now, if you feel that you can get better in a spot, always get better in that spot. But at the same time, I'm looking at it, I'm saying a very interesting one. I want to double check this and fact check this because I believe during the off season. So yeah, they just brought in Orlando Brown Jr. So this is maybe telling me you want to replace Jonah Williams on the opposite side. That's something that's telling me when I'm looking at that because I think overall, when we talk about it, Orlando Brown Jr., with the money that you paid him, he is going to be the guy for the foreseeable future. Now, let's get into this next pick. We got the Buffalo Bills. Now, without a Ken Dorsey, do they keep the guy who's running the offense right now, or do they bring in a new offensive mind? A lot of questions to have for Buffalo. I think they've played better thus far since the firing of Ken Dorsey, but we still got to see some consistency within that. I really like Josh Allen. I'm not out on him just yet. He's turning over the football, has to clean it up, but we cannot deny the talent. Let's see what they do right here, though. So they get okay. So they get room. Okay, I really like this pick. I think that what we're going to see if Washington makes the college football playoff, we're going to see this guy play himself. And like I said, this is an exceptional receiver class. I just named you 3 different receivers, and I didn't even name room. So to add that in there with a Stephon Diggs. Now, this also begs the question, are you getting rid of a Stephon Diggs? And I think it's probably absurd when you say it and you think about it to yourself, but we're hearing some of those rumblings. We're seeing some of the frustrations. I don't think it's at Josh Allen himself because You want to win football games, regardless of what position you are. I think it just gets amplified when you're a wide receiver. I don't want to take too much time and digress on this topic, but I do like the pick for them. Arizona Cardinals, back at it again. And I want to double check who they take with their. So they took Marvin Harrison Jr. with their second pick. 17th pick, I go talent. It's some very good receivers on the board, but you can't take that again. Offensive line, defensive line. I think they took my favorites. They took Latu. They took Jared Verse. Dallas Turner is going. Took my favorite corner. So they go Braylon Trice. Back-to-back Washington guys. Like I said, a team that makes the college football playoff, everyone's going to shine. Michael Penix Jr. is going to shine. Rome is going to shine. Braylon is going to shine. I like it. I think that what we're seeing really with this team, just adding talent. Like I said, it's adding talent, letting Jonathan Gannon build that defensive scheme that he really wants. And overall, though, I think there's just a lot of holes. Add an edge guy that's going to boost the play of some of those other positions. I had to like it. And of course, I want to know what you guys think as well. Now we get into the Broncos. The way they've been playing right now in this little win streak, I think that a rookie quarterback wouldn't fit it. We're seeing a team that likes to run the football. Now, you can have a guy who learns on the fly, has a plethora of talent, but I think with the money that Russell Wilson has, the veteran leadership that he has, we've been seeing it in these last couple of games in their little win streak. Run the ball, let Russ do some things. He's not cooking per se, but I think with his veteran leadership, he's seen so many different coverages. He's seen so many games of football. He's being conservative. He's really being a game manager plus a little bit on the side. So I think they're going to try to keep that. Got Vance Joseph on the defensive side of the ball. Sean Payton running this offense. What do they want to do right here? Offensive line is another question we could have. I think defensively, when you trade a Chubb, you don't have a Vaughn anymore. I'm looking at Patrick Surtain in the back end. It's some talent there, but this could also be a defensive pick. I want to see what they do. So they go Nate Wiggins. They add a corner alongside PS2. I don't see nothing particularly wrong with it. I think this is a team that what we're going to see out of Vance Joseph, getting aggressive and letting those corners play football. Takeaways. We're going to predicate our defense off of that. We're going to have the defensive line. Now, I still think they could add there, especially when you have the Randy Gregory signing, doesn't go as planned. I think edge is something that they can look at and say, okay, free agency, maybe in the second, third rounds of the draft. Actually, not sure how many picks they have with their trade, so I'll have to double check that as well. But like I said, you add a corner alongside PS2. Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. Even in a down season, he's been one of those guys who's just shut down on that side of the football. So I really have to like that. And he's also played a gauntlet of receivers, talking about the ACC. So Atlanta Falcons, very interesting one. I think I see receiver right here. I see quarterback right here. I think for me, I go quarterback. Desmond Ridder, I thought that he had some upside, but what I've seen this season, a guy who cannot consistently read coverages, a guy who cannot consistently get the football to his playmakers. Now, is that Arthur Smith? And we also beg the question, if it is Arthur Smith, we bring in a new head coach, he is going to want his own guy. I think this is a quarterback position right here. We still got Michael Penix on the board. We got a McCarthy on the board. Let's see what happens. Penix Jr., Michael Penix Jr., Atlanta Falcons fans, what do you think about this? Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Michael Penix Jr. I think that is a great core of offense. Is Arthur Smith going to be running the offense? That's another question. But I really like that. I thought it would be a quarterback, and it was. Now, Indianapolis Colts. Now I want to double check this. Talking about Michael Pittman Jr. real quick, because I believe he's up. So he'll be a free agent. And I think when we talk about free agents, what's the biggest thing? It's not always about being the best player at your position. It's about the market. Where is the market going? And are you free? And does the team need to retain you? Now, I like what Josh Dobbs has been doing this season. Alec Pierce hasn't stepped up like I thought he would, but he's still a deep threat. You look at some of those things on the football team. Jonathan Taylor, he just got injured. He's going to miss a couple of weeks. I think offensive line is something we could talk about, but looking at their left tackle, he's been playing a lot better this season. So this is an interesting one. I mean, defensively, they've been feisty. I can say that. Shane Steichen, does he feel that he has the weapons that he wants right now that he truly needs? Still good receivers on the board. Do you draft a young guy, let a Pittman walk, allocate that money somewhere else? Looking at the secondary, A couple questions. I do like Juju Brents. He's been playing really good for a rookie. I think I like what I've saw out of him this season. I like them coming out of K State. So pretty good player. See what they do though. JC Latham. Okay, so this is telling me that, and I'm thinking about this is probably replacing Braden Smith because the biggest thing I'm looking at is when we talk about these tackles for this football team, Ryman has been playing very good at the left tackle position. Still got a big Q at the guard position. Center is a possibility, but I think when we do this, we feel that we're solidifying this for Anthony Richardson. Still got to remember, Colts fans, it won't be too long. That guy's coming back next season. So Shane Steichen, he's going to have his guy back. I like what Gardner Minshew has been able to do. I mean, really, he's probably in line for one of those Coach of the Years if they keep winning. Make some noise in that division, but you still got the Texans, you still got Jacksonville. Overall, I think you solidify this for your 10-year guy. Minnesota Vikings. I think this is defense. I'll just say it. Quarterback position, do you keep? I believe they probably keep Kirk Cousins, but the reason I say defense is for Brian Flores. I commend the job he's done with the lack of some of that elite talent on the defensive side of the ball. You look at the game on Monday, the Chicago Bears scored 12 points. This is if you had Josh Dobbs playing just a little bit better. If he played like he played against some of those other teams, if he played like he played against the first game against the Atlanta Falcons, I think that he looks a little bit better. You probably win that game on Monday night. So what do they do right here? Do they keep Kirk? They go Keon Coleman. This is interesting. The one reason I say I don't think you need it per se, but the one reason I would say you got Justin Jefferson, bona fide, solidified number one receiver, can do all things, can play all positions, XYZ. But I think when you have a guy like Jordan Addison, I really like Jordan Addison. So I think you have those two young guys. The only thing I say about Keon Coleman, he's a bigger guy. I talk about that catch radius. I talk about the physicality of a guy like that. Pairing him with this team, that's the offense. You add Kirk Cousins into that. I mean, he's probably going to lead the league in passing yards. Truthfully, with the Keon Coleman, a Jordan Addison, and a Justin Jefferson, we're probably looking at the next coming of Cincinnati. We talk about a T. Higgins, like I said. I think about a Keon Coleman when I see T. Higgins. A Tyler Boyd. Can we say Jordan Addison has some of those same skills and tools? Look at a Justin Jefferson. Look at a Jamar Chase. I wouldn't do it, but I think that is great for the offense if you want to do it. I'm still looking at some of that talent on the defensive side of the ball, but of course, there's 7 rounds in the draft. They could address that elsewhere. For this team, this is an interesting one. I think I like a lot of the talent. Offensively, you could go on the interior. I think you still got when you're healthy, you got an Abraham Lucas and you got a Charles Cross. That's when you're healthy and you're at your best. And I like those two guys at tackle. Interior, I think that's something that they've been trying to address. But when we look at guard center, do we go that in the first round? So probably we could be looking at edge. I think that you have a Daryl Taylor. You have a Chinanu Wosu who's going to be back healthy. You have a Boy Mafe. I'm looking at some of those different things. I don't know if edge is really the pick. So I'm looking at the needs. A bit questionable here or there. But also, you drafted a Leonard Williams trying to get physical against the run. Like I said, I talked about them a little earlier. They don't particularly stop the run well. They don't particularly stop the pass well, even though they have a Reek. They have a Devon Witherspoon. They have a Jamal Adams when he's healthy. I think that they still have struggled in coverage, and really that could be due to the linebackers. A Bobby Wagner across there in the middle. A Jordan Brooks trying to come off that ACL. I want to see what they do right here. I'm going to take my hands off this one. And Mecca, he's a dog at receiver. We know about those Ohio State receivers. Is this telling me we're moving out of the Tyler Lockett? We're putting Jackson Smith into our slot. We still got DK on the outside as our 1, as our Z, as our X, excuse me. And then we put Emeka at our Z. I think when you look at it, the only way this makes sense is if Tyler Lockett won't be on the team next year. And I want to check his contract real quick, because is there truthfully a possibility of that? I know he's getting a bit older, but just looking at his contract. So yeah, Lockett's not up. I think that I just want to look at his contract actually, because if he's not up, he's a free agent in 2026. So I would say, Seahawks fans, I know you're probably not happy with that one. Computer, at the end of the day, it is a robot. Not a big time fan of that decision in particular. Just like I said, kind of with the Vikings a little bit. Some things that we look at with some of the bigger needs on the team. And of course, we have to address talent on the board. But I think this is overall a good player, but is it the fit for this team? Pittsburgh Steelers. Interesting one. I think that you look at Joey Porter Jr. playing as good as he's playing in his rookie season. Patrick Peterson is getting a bit older. We're looking at that secondary. You still got Mink. I think with the receivers, you feel pretty confident in Deontay Johnson, minus the play where you didn't know it was a fumble. Looking at the running back position, you like Jalen Warren. I think that looking at some of those tackles, I mean, you have a Dan Moore, Broderick Jones, who's still very young. Some of the other guys on the offensive line, you brought in Isaac Seumalo. Quarterback, of course, it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett. DB may be the pick for depth and for young talent in this pool. Let's see. Now that's still 7-4. There's a world where they can even win a division. They go safety. So this is telling me one of those versatile guys in a world where teams don't play base defense anymore. So we're looking at a guy like this. He could be versatile, play around the football. We still got Minka. He could also be versatile. He brings a lot of different things to the defense. Overall, Cam Kitchens out of Miami, excuse me, a very good player, and I like the pick. I like the pick. I think when you look at the talent on the board, some of those other positions, do you draft it that high? And if they feel like this is their guy with the talent right here, fair a little bit. Now, Houston Texans. It says receiver, but I like what they have right now. I like Tank Dell. Now, maybe this is adding a guy with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Noah Brown has been playing good, but can they get better? Now, I think a lot of receivers that I truthfully like are off the board. Defensive line is somewhere we can look. I really like how Will Anderson has been playing. Jonathan Grenard. Looking at the linebacker position of Christian Harris, some of those different names at that linebacker position. Secondary, Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson. I want to see what they do right here. I think maybe for D'Amico Ryans, you add defense and try to build that defense. I like what the offense is right now because you have a CJ Stroud. I like his weapons, a Devin Singletary, a Damian Pierce, even though he's having a sophomore slump. I look at the offensive line. I do like the offensive line. So they end up getting a corner, Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. Like I said, I looked at the secondary, and I think could the secondary be a place where they add talent alongside of Derek Stingley? What do we think about Derek Stingley? That's just a topic for quick conversation. Let me know down below in the comments. I think that coming out of college, having that freshman season like he did at LSU, I feel like he was on pace to be one of the greatest corners ever of all time coming into the NFL, but just hasn't go. And I think we can predicate some of that to health. But also looking at it, I think he's still a very good player, but compared to what those expectations were coming out of LSU, we think of a Pat Pete, we think of a Tyrann Mathieu, some of those great guys out of the secondary wearing that number. What do we think about him so far? Now, the Miami Dolphins, pretty interesting one. I think that they have so much talent. This is where we get into the position where we just see what the team does. I really like a lot of the talent on this team. They say tight end offensive line. I don't have too much pushback against that. I think about Achane, Reem Mostert. Look at those receivers of Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. See what they do right here. Defense, I like their secondary. Javon Holland is having a very great season. Pro Bowl Javon Holland, question mark, drop it down below in the comments. They get a receiver here, Adonai Mitchell. I don't know. Like I said, when you have Mike McDaniel and you draft anything on offense, 9 times out of 10, he's probably going to click just because they have the innovative offensive mind and he makes a lot of things look special. Still looking at the defensive side of the ball, I think with a Vic Fangio, has a lot of talent. Jalen Phillips injured right now. We want to see. Now, they brought in a Pierre Paul with his age. I think he's a good player, a good veteran in that room. He can help against the run, but how much can he bring to the pass rush? And I think with the Jalen Phillips, he was probably your best pass rusher at his best on that team. So just something to talk about, something to think about with that move right there. And I want to really get through these picks. Looking at the Dallas Cowboys, I think that Pollard had a really good game last week. I'm not going to say he hasn't been himself, but I think compared to last season coming off of the injury, we haven't seen the Pro Bowl caliber Pollard. Still some football left to be played. Rico Dotto, pretty solid backup. Looking at the center position. So question marks right there. Defensive line, I think you got a Mozzie Smith. You got a Ziggy. You got a Tank, a DeMarcus Lawrence, a Micah Parsons. Linebacker is something, but they've been really versatile. And shout out Dan Quinn for that. I mean, you have a Leighton Van Der Esch go down, a Marquise Bell, Florida A&M, HBCU guy. Shout out my HBCUs. He transitions into kind of that quasi linebacker, dime backer position. I like what they've done there. They still have Demarion Overshown. He got hurt in the preseason. He got hurt in the off season. So I think him coming back, he'll be a guy that gets into that rotation. Corner, you got Deron Bland. Stephon Gilmore may not be there next year, but you got Trayvon Diggs coming back. Do they want to get somebody in the slot? Couple questions right there. Still got Hooker in the back end, a Curse, a Wilson. Let's see what they do. So they got Leonard Taylor. Again, another one of those versatile defensive linemen. I think it's kind of redundant a little bit to me. That's what I would say with that pick. I don't want to waste too much time on it because I just talked about why I probably wouldn't get one of those bigger bodied guys. But also, it's an interesting pick because of the player that he is. Now, looking at the Detroit Lions, I think for me, defensive line from what we've seen these past couple weeks. But just let's see what they do right here. Let's see what they do. I'm gonna keep my hands off this one. I want to see it and talk about it. So they go corner. Can't be really mad at this one. I think Cameron Sutton, he's solidified. He's a dog in the secondary. But you look outside of that, you talk about a Will Harris, you talk about a Jerry Jacobs. I actually like this pick. It's a talented guy, a young guy who can get an Aaron Glenn scheme and learn if Aaron Glenn is still if he's still there. But I think that very good pick, especially when you look at some of the edge talent and some of the guys who are off the board. Can't be mad at this one. I think with their interior, they have some guys getting older. Still have a Jonah Jackson. Maybe that right guard position. They drafted Kobe Shorts, but is that something they could be looking at? A couple of questions. Overall, though, I actually like the pick. Jacksonville Jaguars, looking at offensive line a little bit. I think that's something we have to talk about. They made a trade at the trade deadline, brought in a guard. I think with the edge, Travon Walker, he's been looking better. Josh Allen, he's going to have to get paid. And he's going to command some top edge money the way that he's playing football this season. You look at the secondary, I think some of those guys, I like Campbell. I like some of the guys in the back, and I think maybe that's somewhere we could look. But we're going to see. I think you go secondary or maybe offensive. So they go secondary. They get Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. This is the second year when we've seen some of those Minnesota safeties making noise. But overall, like I said, not a terrible pick. I think you add just talent. We've seen, and I want to go to this to actually talk about this. Because I think really with the secondary for Jacksonville, we've seen, like I said, a Rayshawn Jenkins. Now you got a Andre Cisco out of Syracuse, but I think when you bring in what you have now with the Tyler Nubin, kind of that versatile guy who's going to play around a little bit, not really critical of this one. Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you got MVS, you got Rashee Rice, you got Sky Moore, you got Kadarius Toney, but at the end of the day, I'm naming all these guys with talent, but who's really producing at a high level? Do they go at it again and try to get one of those receivers? I think with the defense, they've been playing lights out. Top 5 defense in all of football. I can name those guys. Chris Jones. I mean, we can go Nick Bolton. We can go Willie Ye. We can go L'Jarius Sneed. All of the guys in the secondary. I like that, but what did he do right here? They go Kalen King, a dog. A dog, I think a bit handsy at times, but we can say that about a lot of these young corners. But getting him out of Penn State, I really, really like that pick. I think, though, with what they have right now at that position, I mean, you have a Trent McDuffie. You still got a Sneed. That's top end corner talent. Oh, Sneed is up. Okay. Okay. Bringing another physical corner. You got Sneed going out of the door potentially. San Francisco 49ers, very good team. Offensive line could be a possibility. I mean, they got Deommodore Lenoir. They got Travarius Ward. I mean, when we get into these talented teams, I just want to see what they do. And of course, for the fans of these teams, I want to know, what do you think about Josh Newton? Very good corner. I think a perfect fit for what the San Francisco 49ers like to do. I got the pleasure of watching him a couple times when watching TCU. He's another one of those guys. We talk about physical at the point of attack, can make plays on the football. He matched up with Travis Hunter a couple plays earlier in the season. So I like the pick. I really like the pick, especially for a team. I mean, you have Isaiah Oliver. Like I said, I talked about some of these guys, but just adding that plethora of young talent, getting younger in the back end, how can we not love it? Baltimore Ravens, pretty interesting team. I think another one of those teams where you just want to see. Shout out Justin Matabuke, been a dog. Amarius Mims. I know they got Ronnie Stanley and Morgan Moses, I believe. Because looking at what their team has right now, I mean, you could always get younger, especially at those offensive line positions. And even if he doesn't start, you're still looking at a guy who can be potentially a flexible player, potentially depth at a position like that, especially when you have older tackle in Morgan Moses. So understanding a bit. Now the Philadelphia Eagles, mm, I still think linebacker is something that needs to be addressed, but will it be addressed right here? Shaquille Leonard's visiting later, so we're gonna see even what he does. Does he go to Dallas? Does he go to Philly? What team does he go to? Defensive back, I think you still have a Bradbury and Slay. You got an Eli Ricks, a young guy in there. A Josh Jobe. I mean, talent could be the move here, but seeing the fact that they could have took one last year and didn't, you still got a Bradbury on a contract. You still got a Slay on a contract. Receiver, I don't know. I don't think they prepare for post AJ Brown this early. Still got Devontae Smith. Let's see who they get. Didn't even show me. Stay in your seat, grading your draft. So they got a corner. Kamari Lassiter. Interesting draft. Of course, let me know what you guys think about this one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will be coming out with my own mock draft where I actually select the picks for these teams in the foreseeable future. Going to watch some more film, going to look at some more teams, solidify what I believe their needs are, and we'll be right back at it. I thought this was a pretty interesting topic and a pretty interesting way to go about this draft for today. Not a lot going on today. Aaron Rodgers, how did he get back on the football field? We're going to have to talk about that in another video. But that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you for watching as always. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe once again. And now, we out.